Yo, what's up, what's up, what's up? Y'all already know what it is. It's your boy One Deuce. Anybody know this corner? Is anyone familiar with this corner? This is 14th and U Street Northwest. Anybody familiar with this area? Over the last, I guess I could say, 7 years. No, this corner was pumping. Different time for DC. It was the store era. As far as the eye can see, that's 16th Street down there. A little further is Adams Morgan. DC streets count by the numbers. So, pretty easily, you could count from 18th Street, Adams Morgan, down to 7th Street, DC. And during these times, 2017 through 2020, just in these blocks alone, talking about Adams Morgan to 7th Street, there was an abundance of stores here in DC. Can't pinpoint where. I know where a lot of the first stores were down in the Northeast Corridor, 8th Street, and Adams Morgan. But I mean, who knows when, where, who was the first, who was the second, who was the third. I'll let that be up to debate. But it did start a boom somewhere around 2017, 2018. And a lot of these stores, they opened up, they didn't have any fear, and they wanted to do it how they seen fit, because DC did not have a market set up for sales. As stated in previous videos, you can grow, you can sell, you can grow, you can consume, you can gift someone, but you could not sell any products. Couldn't even produce, process things for real. You couldn't process, for real, that is still illegal. So like having wax, process, and that's a whole nother, video, what is considered processing. But yeah, DC was a wild time. So these stores popped up, and a lot of these guys, they decided, hey, I'm gonna go ahead, because it was sort of a gray area. DC didn't set up sales, so we're gonna make the rules, and we're gonna make how this should play out and how this should be. A lot of guys lasted a very long time and were very successful at what they did. And throughout that time, DC, the guys who did had the legacy licenses, those people were sort of adamant about why these guys set up everywhere. Why aren't they paying taxes? How are they able to do what they are doing here? And I have to go through all the legal hoops and all the legal boundaries to do what I want to do. And as time passed, where we figured out we couldn't go rec, I think a lot of those legacy guys would have went rec if they could. And once again, the Andy Harris rider, stopped us from doing what we wanted to stop them from coming over and, doing what they wanted to do. So we ended up with more and more stores as things stayed in limbo, with the hope and the promise of either buying a license to start rec, or either getting something that would fit the DC culture. And what we came up with the self-certification process here in DC. Now, like I said, a lot of these stores, some didn't have plans at all to sort of convert over. Some people were thinking about converting over when the time came. And 2024 came. And that's when sort of the enforcement came on the stores. And they started to raid the stores and started to lock people up in the stores. The explosion was huge. It was very huge. Some of the benefits of the store was the convenience, because it was a store everywhere, so it wasn't like you couldn't find a store. The selection of product, all right, compared to DC, because we only have a few manufacturers online right now, the selection of the products were wide and abundant. Quality sometimes took a step back to quantity, of course, but there was a selection there. I think people had more of a closer relationship maybe with those owners, because some of those owners were people who just did the pop-up scene. So everyone knows they have a trusted tree guy is everything. So I think a lot of people trusted the stores, and that converted into their sales and what people would come in. Now, some of the bad things about the stores were it was oversaturated. It was too many stores. There was no way everyone was going to be in these stores doing anything, making any money or anything. So that's why you had the quantity over quality thing. Instead of bringing in those packs that weren't PM'd and didn't have all the different negatives attached to them, they were bringing in cheap product instead of bringing in the good high quality product. So that ended up, and making that decision, because these places, let's see, this is empty, square space here, maybe about 1,100 square feet or whatever. That place costs money. Costs money to lease, it costs money to either own one. And with that overhead of the lease, your lights, your bills, your N fees, you did ended up bringing in low quality stuff. So a lot of people didn't bring in fire products. That personalized experience that came from being a vendor, going to a store, it was a great time. That personal experience led to a lot of great relationships that people built up over time. And when they had to switch over to licensing, some of those relationships ceased to, carry on by way of people sort of just like, I don't want to go through the hoops of doing this no more. I'll find another weed guy. And for other reasons, various reasons, and rightfully so. Most people aren't used to it. And some of the cons of having one of the legal structures was that you had to compete against a guy that put in that footwork. Didn't have to throw a lot of marketing dollars in. He didn't have to have the best people on the team at a high price that wanted to make the dream come true